On behalf of the Office of Interdisciplinary Studies, Ideas at OP Jindal Global University, I welcome you all to today's masterclass session titled Do Human Rights Undermine Empowerment with Ms. Sandhya Drew. The Ideas Masterclass Seminar Series is a central part of both our academic programs, the in-person MSc in Development Practice and the online MSc in Development Studies programs. Through the series, we invite leading academics, scholars, and development practitioners from India and all across the world to engage with critical questions in development theory and practice. Today's session is our first class of this, a masterclass of this year, 2026. And I'm very, very thankful to Sandhya for agreeing to be with us today. Sandhya Drew is Senior Lecturer at City Law School, Honorary Adjunct Professor of Law at OP Jindal Global University, and Senior Fellow at the Center for Legal Empowerment of the Poor. She's a barrister of England and Wales and Northern Ireland with over 2 decades of practice in employment and public law, including landmark human rights litigation before the UK's highest courts and the European Court of Human Rights. Her work has directly shaped law and policy, including contributing to the enactment of the UK's Modern Slavery Act 2015. She has also worked extensively across jurisdictions, including in India, and with institutions such as the International Labour Organization. In today's session, Sandhya will explore the idea of legal rights and ask a critical question that sits at the heart of development practice. Is there a fundamental tension between human rights and empowerment? Sandhya will speak for about, say, 35 to 40 minutes, after which we'll open the floor for questions and answers and discussion and feedback, if any. Over to you, Sandhya, and thank you once again for joining us.
Well, Prachi, thank you very much for this invitation to kick off 2026 with. It's a great honour. And one of the things I'm going to be sort of questioning is why me, sitting in London, is in a position to teach you anything. And I hope you'll decide at the end of this session that really you need to be sorting these questions out for yourself. Anyway, our question for discussion today is, as Prachi said, do human rights undermine empowerment? And when we're talking about empowerment as development workers, we're really talking about empowerment of the poor, aren't we? Empowerment of people who currently do not have power. And there was a subsidiary question in the poster which said, do rights undermine empowerment? So I'm going to take advantage of those two versions. Do human rights undermine empowerment, and do rights undermine empowerment? So can I just see, and I'd love if you could always, as Prachi said, turn on your camera. I know that some of you think, oh, I didn't expect to be seen and all that. But if you can't, I'd like to get a sense, voting on instinct, whether your answer to that question is yes or no. So if if you think, yes, they do undermine empowerment, put your hand up now, visibly or via the hand raise technology. Ms. Gulati, Sanika, do you say yes or no? Yes. You think they undermine? Oh, is that yes? Is that a yes? Nod your head if you're saying yes, they do undermine empowerment. No? Sanika, I'm talking to you. Sanika, can you hear me? No. Okay. Nirmal, you have turned on your camera. Thank you so much, because it's much better to see people you're talking to. So what's your view? This question, do human rights undermine empowerment? Just let's take a poll at the start of the session. Yes or no? Simple yes or no. Okay. Sanika says, yes, they do undermine empowerment. Nirmalji, what's your view? You can unmute if you like. There's only 5 of us in the session.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, they undermine. Okay, right. Prachi. Yes or no? Assuming it's a simple yes or no.
I don't think so.
So you think no, it's a no. Okay.
No.
Diva.
Yes? No, I don't think so. Human rights undermine empowerment.
Okay. So it's 2-2. And Aryan. Oh, Aryan, are you tech or are you faculty or Mr. Sarkar? Hello? No?
I'm a student at JGLS.
Good. All right. So yes or no, you've got the casting vote.
I would go for no, ma'am.
No. All right. So you can call me Sandhya, by the way. Okay. So we've got 2-3, which is a divided group, isn't it? So 2 of you think they do undermine empowerment, and 3 of you think, 2 of you think they do undermine empowerment, 3 of you think they don't. So we're split. So this is a good basis for a discussion. There's disagreement. So I also just wanted to talk to you briefly to look around the room. What experience or interest brought you to this course, and what do you hope to do after? Do you want to go and work in the field? Do you want to go and work for a large NGO? Do you not know what you want to do? Diva. You need to unmute and just stay unmuted. If we can, tech
Could you
colleagues.
please repeat your question?
Yes. So what experience, why are you doing this course, and what do you hope to do afterwards?
I'm doing this course just because I like it, and I don't know like what I exactly want to do after completing it. I'll just like kind of like going with the flow.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do if I was 28, so you've got time, you've got lots of time. Good. Ariane.
Ma'am, I had recently done my internship for human rights organization, so this is a topic that I had been fascinating for. So yeah, it's good to listen to you.
Good. Okay. Sanika.
Like maybe taking it as an option for something ahead, like as for a work basis.
Okay. And what I should have asked as well is which parts of India do you come from? Sanika first.
I come from New Delhi, Rajouri
New
Garden.
Delhi. Okay.
Yeah.
Diva?
I come from Siliguri, West. I come from Siliguri, West Bengal.
Oh, West Bengal. West Bengal. Okay. And then last but not least, Ariane.
Ma'am, I come from Northeast India. I come from Tripura.
Tripura. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know I was going to do a sum on the case study? Okay. Tripura. Good. All right. So Prachi has given me given a very flattering introduction to me. I'm of Indian, partly Indian heritage. My mum's from I grew up in Dehradun from Punjab. I practiced in labour law for 20 years. I have the links with Jindal that Prachi said I did. I've worked in business and human rights as well as labour law. I'm a senior fellow at the Jindal Centre for Legal Empowerment, which I'm going to talk to you a bit about. But crucially, and I want you to constantly think about this when you're listening to me speaking, I'm talking to you from London. And for me, that is a very important thing and really a qualification on anything I say. So I'm going to address the question first, and then I'm going to give you a case study to get your views on it. So there's a very respectable argument that human rights do undermine empowerment. And there are 2 reasons, I think, generally, one in theory, one in practice. So the first theoretical argument for law being human rights undermining empowerment is that law isn't part of the solution, it's part of the problem. That's the argument. And you know, the kind of, this is best put out in the book by, if you're as you're studying your master's, Samuel Moyn, Moyn, and I can send out these names if you don't already know them. And he argues that human rights undermine empowerment, that the focus on human rights disempowers people rather than empowering us. And the argument is that law sets us up to believe that there is a series of rules and that if we just follow these rules and everyone learns to use them, then everything will be fine. And to use the academic phrase, law is seen as constitutive. It's constitutive. It makes up the existing state of affairs. Rather more vividly, Gandhiji famously said, law serves, and this was obviously back in the day, law serves to tighten the English grip, he said. What did he mean by that? He meant that law serves to kind of as a consensus for creating the hold that the British Empire had on India. So as I say, it's a very sort of respectable view, and for that reason Gandhiji had no part in the drafting of the Indian constitution. So that's the argument in theory. And as I say, it's a perfectly respectable argument. And I'd be interested to hear from the two of you who took the view that you did, whether you think there's anything else. The second basis for the argument is in practice. And I think it's a sort of one that needs to be taken seriously, which is that rights are nothing unless they are asserted. There's no point just having a right unless you're able to assert it, unless you're able to enforce it. And when we think about that, and when we think about the inequalities of power that exist, and I'm taking India an example, but we could take any countries. If you think about assertion of rights, assertion of land rights by indigenous peoples, no doubt there are examples from that Nimad can tell us about Tripura. If we think about Dalit people asserting participation rights, if we think about women asserting their rights to be visible in public, we see immediately, don't we, the problem of retaliation, that people are treated the worst when they assert their rights. They face all the violence that we view. And I think that's the second argument for saying that human rights can undermine empowerment, because without empowerment, those rights simply assertion of those rights simply cause more disempowerment. However, for reasons that I will give, I think the answer to the question is no. And I think the reason, and obviously I speak as a lawyer, you would say, well, of course I would say that, but I think law can be used to challenge the existing state of affairs. It's slow, but it can do it. And I'll give you one example, which is the Bhopal disaster, which remains the worst chemical disaster, December 1984. And its reverberations continue. What is the liability of parent companies for acts of their subsidiaries? Can they simply close their subsidiaries and disappear? What can communities do to raise their voices in what's happened? And the law has slowly responded. So there's a firm in London, again, I can provide you with the details, but it's Lee Day, a solicitor called Richard Meeran, of Indian origin originally, but via South Africa and via London. And he has developed cases which say, yes, a parent company can be liable for the acts of its subsidiaries. And he's challenged Shell, he's challenged Vedanta in Africa. Generally, his cases, because of his own background, are cases in Africa, cases in Latin America. So that is an example of law being able to be used. And it wasn't easy. He tells about how he went from barrister to barrister, and they all said, there's no case. You can't bring a case of this kind. So it's a concept of law, which is not that it's there, it's easily available, but that you have to develop the law in order to address injustice. And again, the book I can send that, but it's Richard Meeran, and the book is published by Oxford. It's Human Rights Litigation Against Multinationals. I can send you a reading list of this. And there is plenty of other examples of cases which seem to be lost, and then they got pushed further and they won. So it's a different concept of law. And if we move on to thinking about, what's happened since Bhopal, we have the 2014 Treaty on Business and Human Rights, which is the UN treaty. Again, if you don't know about that, I can give you further details. It's taken its time, 2014, it's still being developed, but slowly but surely the EU is now enacting rather weakly a directive on it, and we have a French piece of legislation. So I say that the law can be used to challenge the existing state of affairs. And the other assumption, I think, is in the question, which makes it a question I ultimately disagree with. The question says, can lawyers make good development workers? And I think that's a different question. The law is not just for lawyers to use. The law is for everyone to use. And again, there's a good US academic called Philip Alston who has this concept of vernacularization, where, you have rights. They're out there, up there in Geneva, in New York, in broad levels of generality, and you bring them down to earth with the specifics of each place. What do they mean in each country? What do they mean in each state? What do they mean in each village? So the process of vernacularization, the idea that law is not just for lawyers, that when you have human rights, you're not saying, well, you have a human right, give it to me as a lawyer to fight for you. You're saying you have human rights. It's a process of education. And that is, I think, ultimately is empowering, not disempowering. And some time ago in COVID, we had a Jindal City summer school in which we looked at human rights and what they meant in India, what they meant in the UK, you know, thinking about what is the right. Well, we know that in the right to life in India is, you know, the right to livelihood, the right to all those socio-economic rights within it. In the UK, it's more about, you know, the right to have your death investigated by an inquiry, because we have the resources to have lots of inquiries. So for those reasons, I disagree with the question. And I think there are two basic principles, which I think are principles of empowerment, but which I think the law can accommodate, which is the principle of voice. And I think the principle of place, the principle of specificity. So what I wanted to do was actually at this point share a case study, but you probably have better examples. So let me share the case study I have, and I can also put it in the chat. Can you all see the case study? Let's see if I can make it bigger.
Yes, we can see it.
You were able to okay. So I'm just, yeah, okay. So you were engaged on a project in a village in Jharkhand. You have not met any, hands up if you've done a project already. You're engaged in a development project. Okay. You have not met any of the villagers yet. They mainly speak Korta. My mum tells me my aspirated consonants are terrible, so apologies. And few speak Hindi well. You do not speak Korta. You are aware that some of the problems the villagers face are respiratory diseases such as asthma, silicosis, and COPD from mining work. They are paid low wages and they face harassment from local big landowners when they protest. So this is the project plan that I am giving you, and I think we probably just do it as a whole group given our numbers. So the person who's done this has said, okay, find a villager who speaks Hindi. Number 2, call the villagers together and give them a presentation on their rights. And some of the rights I think they are, these can be legal rights or human rights, are their right to health, the new wages code in India, which came into force on the 21st of November finally, and the responsibility of Jharkhand state. Their right to approach the Supreme Court, there may be others. And then 3, once you've done this, you can present your work at an international conference on the specific problems villagers face and your findings on those problems. Okay, what's wrong with this plan? And can you do better? So what about find a villager who speaks Hindi? Is that a good way to start? And if not, why not? Feel free to unmute, we're not. So is that a good way to start? Diva, is it a good way to start? You're in Jharkhand, the villagers mainly speak Korta, but you don't speak Korta. So, I mean, surely the best way to start is to find a villager who speaks Hindi.
I find it, I don't think that the first point is right. First thing I believe is I'll need to find a translator who can translate Khorta to Hindi or like English or whatever language I speak. So because if I'm only finding a villager who speaks Hindi, I am not looking at the voices of the people who speak Khorta, and they are likely to be marginalized further by it. And also, it can be very likely that since it's a village, that the people who are speaking Hindi are people belonging to upper affluent classes. So we need to look at this aspect also.
I mean, that's excellent. Don't mute, we'll carry on talking. I mean, that's spot on. Yeah. I mean, you kind of the language and language can be a barrier. And as Diva said, you know, you're already just feeding into the hierarchy, aren't you? And you're allowing your own perception. And that's, you know, the first part of a project is understand what is there, what's going on. And language, of course, can do that best. And I mean, you will all, I imagine, speak more than one language. British, you know, suffer from the the experience of being monoglots. But yeah, good. All right, excellent. Any other thoughts from Sanika or Aryan or Nirman? Aryan.
Sandhya, I think I would agree with what Divya said because even at our place, when there are people who come from the mainland, there's always a feeling that we have to know their language, but then they don't know our language, and it becomes a problem because not all amongst us know how to speak in English or Hindi, right? So if they
Yes.
have to connect with majority of us, they need to know at least bits and pieces of our language or being a translator, as being said.
Yes, yes. You're talking from the Tripura sort
Yeah,
of
from the
perspective.
perspective of Northeast. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, yeah, I'm learning Hindi at the moment, and it's a very painful languages quickly, but the idea that one goes in without speaking a language, and of course Hindi is just the surface, isn't it? As you say, there are hundreds of local languages, and every language is a passport to speaking, and people will speak much more. I mean, my experience from interviews is not only the language. I mean, the interpreter, as Diva said, is the first option, but if you can speak it yourself, if one of your team or your team member, you have a team member who speaks, and this is the importance, isn't it, about having someone on your team who's local. But as Diva said, also just being aware about who it is. Are you just getting a spokesperson who may be, really thinking carefully about that? And people will always open up more if you speak their language, always. Not just that, but also the face-to-face interviews. It's always my experience that the face-to-face interviews, it's always the bit at the end where people say something that's hugely revealing. So yeah, good. Okay. What about number 2? I'm conscious of time and that you may have other things to do, but let's just do 2 and 3, and then I'll give you your freedom. Call the villagers together and give them a presentation on their rights. So who wants to take this one? Ariane, do you want to take this one? Is this a perfect way to proceed? Is anything missing? Would you do something differently?
Do you think that giving a presentation before the villagers would be the right thing to connect to them? Because I don't think so. I
Good.
mean,
All right.
yeah,
Why
yeah.
not?
I mean, villagers, I think the best way to connect with them will be simply taking somebody, as you said, knowing their own language, and then just noting down their problems, and then telling them their rights. Because at the end of the day, giving them presentation won't help them. Because even I had carried on recently, I did a project on transgender rights in our state. And then I have gotten information from most of the transgender that there have been people who come from the various departments across our state with the point of view of giving them information, but then it just gets limited to them presenting and them noting down their problems, but then the implementation work doesn't take place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think for genuine helping them, I think simply presenting won't help. I think understanding their issue and also making them aware of their right is what will help them.
Good. Okay. So with transgender rights, what how long was your project? That sounds very interesting.
My project was for around 15 days.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And about how many people did you interview?
I interviewed across 31 transgender in our state.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
31. Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. And what role did law play in your or human rights? How much of your conversation was about their experience? How much was their rights? Thinking about our question.
Yeah. So my main target was preparing a list. I prepared a list of questionnaires that had questions about their human rights violation whenever they have to go to the hospitals, or be it in the education field or in the field of any other field. But the thing is, they have said it, they have faced discrimination all across our state. This is because people lack in sensitization, and this is where the work of human rights department come on. So I have suggested around 15 to 20 recommendations and changes that should be brought up in the system. Now it's up to the government whether they take it or not. But then I've suggested them reforms about sensitization, about making, like, even if you see in our state, we already lack in infrastructure and infrastructure to normal human beings. And then when you come to transgender, when all their needs and requirements are separate, it becomes more of a trouble for them. This is an extra trouble for them, because they've always said me ki we don't have transgender toilets in our state. We don't have any special, because even when you go to hospitals, we don't have any special transgender counters for us. So it's very difficult for people to understand. And when it comes to the northeastern part of our country, we already lack in various resources compared to mainland. And then of course this is an issue. And I think that Sandhya, even talking about this thing about the project, the question that you gave, even factories are coming up in our state also. So this can be something that I can work on next.
Yes, yes, yes. Good. Factories to do with resources, or I mean, Tripura is rich in resources, isn't it? What's in
Yes.
factory?
There are bamboo jute factories coming up,
Okay,
because
right.
our state is the second highest producer of jute in India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what I really like, and there's a wonderful, by the South African judge Albie Sachs, a saying in the Fourie case, which was the South African constitutional case on same-sex marriage. And he said, the rights must fit the people, not the people the rights. And what I like about what you've done is you've told their story, haven't you? You've said this is not just one issue on paper. This is people's lives, and you've explained it very well, and you've given it voice, but you've given it voice because you've listened to their voices. And so, that's, I would say, as a lawyer, and I'm aware I'm a minority in the virtual room, that's what an advocate is supposed to do. Maybe we should use the word advocates rather than lawyers, because lawyer we think of as kind of taking it over, and I will, take some money and then present your case. But I think, I mean, did anyone else have any comments on Ariane's account? I mean, it's definitely, I would say it's two-way, isn't it? It's not one way. And that's something I first learned, with the Centre for Legal Empowerment, two ways. And we'll deal with it more in point 3, but that it has to be a two-way process. The only other thing, Ariane, I would ask is, did you interview people other than transgender people? So, you said about, did you interview, I don't know, hospital administrators or...
Sandhya, at this point, I'll say they're too reluctant to speak on a topic like transgender.
Okay, sure.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So it was only on transgender, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you can see there immediately that the one-way presentation doesn't work. It's disempowering, and that's nothing to do with it being law. It's just to do with it's one way. And actually, development workers or people who sit in Geneva and New York and lecture on development, or can be one way as well. Okay, what about, last but not least, 3? Present your work at an international conference on the specific problems the villagers face. Sanika, would you like to take this one? Have a go. Is it the perfect way to deal with it? You've presented your work on the specific problems, and you go to an international conference, say in Amsterdam.
Professor, to add on a bit, my name is Pranab. I'm also an
hello.
advocate.
Okay.
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
I practice at Delhi High Court and Trial Courts. And I'm also a development student at Jindal.
Welcome. So
yeah, I joined in. I've been there in the session, but I joined in a bit late.
Okay.
So as far as the second point is concerned, I believe that we already have this harassment, point number 3 in the problem, from local big land owners when they protest. So we see that there's, already this dissent amongst the workers that are working during around that area.
Yeah.
Right. So we can probably connect with the protesting leaders who conduct those protest rallies, and basically tell them and devise a plan along with them how they can actually, what are the actual platforms at which they can raise their voices through the legal channels. and going in for the authoritarian support that they can get through the law. So I believe that the second point could be a better way if we do it this way. I mean, this is my personal.
The second or the third point, okay, good, I see, yes. So that's a very good, and you're a lawyer too, so now there are two of us, so that's great. So again, the criticism of law is perhaps based on a misunderstanding of law, which is that it's a theoretical paper-based thing. But actually, you know, as Pranab said, you know, okay, harassment, it's not just you have the right and then walk off. It's okay, you have the right. This is who you can complain to. This is the, you know, it's the law in action, as we sometimes say. It's the law as it actually applies. Who can you enforce it against? What the position is, you know, so it's a different concept of the law. Good. All right. Did you have anything to add otherwise, Pranab?
Otherwise, I totally agree with how you put forth the argument that law is something that needs to be developed. And when we talk in the context of development as a societal development or development practice as a subject, law would certainly play an instrumental role in bringing uh, down the inequality, also increasing the equity amongst the society, because it would give the right channels, the right medium to the society or the citizenry of a nation, so to
Okay.
say, so that they
What
can
about
actually put forth their dissent. Yes.
what about the argument about retaliation, that when people assert their rights, what they get is some very nasty retaliation?
I certainly agree that there is some part of retaliation that they face. And in certain cases, especially in India, it has been really very, very harsh onto the people who try to dissent or try to put forth their views pertaining to their daily lives. However, in the same sentence, I would also want to put forth this argument that it is us lawyers, you know, it is our duty as well to bring some common ground amongst the citizenry so that they're aware about their rights and what's happening across. I mean, there could be, for instance, a project that is being uh, developed or that has been tabled for a particular state, and the people, the local or the indigenous people of that particular state, are not happy with the project, but those people might not be aware of what their legal rights are. And we as a society, as a development practice, if we do add on a component of legality into it, and if we see legal professionals as an integral and an instrumental part in bringing in development practice, then we would have that channel to reach out to those people who want to uh, table their dissent onto in a better manner, I would say. Now they only have social organizations like NGOs and like doing protests. I mean, these are the only two ways through which they try to show the government that they're not in support, and then harsh measures are taken against them. But if we have lawyers supporting them, backing them through uh, right, appropriate legal channels, then it would be really easy for them to put for their arguments.
Okay, good. So I'm going to pick up on your word easy, Pranab, and I'm going to ask Diva or Sanika or Aryan to sort of put the other side if they disagree, or give us thoughts on it. I'll come to all three of you, but who wants to kick us off?
Ma'am, I completely agree with what's being said, because I've seen in places where people don't simply protest just because of the lack of support from authorities. So if people and like lawyers do come up, then I think it should help people.
Okay, any disagreement, Diva?
I do agree with what Pranab has said.
Is it easy? So I'm going to pick up on what Pranam said. I'm going to pick one word from what his excellent contribution. Easy. Is it easy? And if it's not easy, what are the difficulties? So we have, let's pick, you know, women who are protesting, not being able to work be visible. Let's take that example, or let's take villages in Tripura who are protesting against the outbreak of respiratory diseases. I don't know, is Ariana, respiratory diseases common, or is there not enough mining for that to be an issue?
As of now, we are lucky enough to have clean air.
Okay, all right. So we
Yeah.
won't do that. What about wages?
Yeah, they are less.
They're less. Isn't Tripura the state that has 178 rupees as the minimum?
I don't think so. It's 178. I have to check, Sandhya.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So give us a sort of problem that there might be a legal solution to, a different problem, because what about low wages? Let's take wages then, okay? So you want to empower workers in Tripura, let's say at the opening of a jute factory, to
Yeah.
claim for better wages. So how might we do that? Is it going to be easy? Are there any challenges, and how might we get past the challenges?
It's never easy because since our state is also getting less amount of fund as compared to other states across India, so even the state government has its own boundary. And when it comes to worker wages, it has always been a central issue because our state has been ruled by left for a long period of time. So these issues had always been central to our politics, and workers have always demanded higher wages, and for some reasons things have not worked on their favor. And I think, yeah, this is not at all easy because every time you go and address an issue pertaining to wages, they have all sort of from the side of the state, they always have some of the other issues. They say that yes, it's never easy for the state as well, because as I said, this is what even many government officials I have spoken to have said, because we as state government employees, or we as a state, have our own restrictions. So yeah, of course they can give you 100 of reasons to say that no, you don't get you don't get good wages, but then yes, it is always difficult, Sandhya.
Good. All right. So that's a clear view that actually, no, it's not easy. So how do we get past it? How do we surmount that? I'm afraid it's back to
Professor,
you. Okay,
yeah,
Pranav.
Professor, the word easy, I mean, I would like to give more context to it.
I know, I picked it
The,
up. I was unfair to you. I picked it up.
no, that's that's not at all an issue. However, what I meant by the process becoming more easy or easier is that in case the instance that we've taken into consideration right now, the example of wages, right? So if an organization does not comply with the law that 178 needs to be paid per hour to an employee, uh, and similarly, the division amongst
It's
the
178 per day, by the way, not per hour.
no, yeah, I'm sorry, my bad. Yeah, per day. And it is also divided in amongst, I mean, there's this categorization amongst the worker. What is it? It's a, I'm not getting it right now.
Categorization by schedule employment, you mean, or?
Exactly. Also considering whether they're doing any
Skill.
technical, yeah, skill based work or a non-skill based work. It's a skilled employee or a skilled employee, unskilled employee. So in that case, even if the employer is not complying with the law, I mean with what the actual pay should be, in that case, I would probably, I mean, if there's a study that is being conducted by a development practitioner group or
Yeah.
a social organization, and they do have a lawyer amongst themselves, then the process of navigating through the process of, reaching out to the right authorities, maybe sending a legal notice to the employer, or to finding out other solutions to this problem would become a little easy. So
Yeah.
it would be a relative easier way, but obviously fighting through the authorities and with the equity and the inequality that we have, I mean, it's certainly not that easy.
Yeah, no. I was unfair. I picked up the word just to create a discussion. So, I mean, this is interesting, isn't it? Because some of you may have been thinking, look, these are two lawyers talking about legal issues, understanding each other. We're getting left out. Well, if you're feeling left out, think how someone in Tripura, someone in Jharkhand, someone in Rajasthan may be feeling. And I think this is this issue of vernacularization, and it goes back really to our attitude to language. I think that we're constantly using the law in an outward facing way, because law is like any specialism, it takes things into its own terms. So I think it's two-way rather than one way, and then looking at legal issues in a way that looks out. And I really like Pranab's suggestion about, and you can do it, can't you? You can have a report. This is the wages thing. People the people bringing the case have a huge problem of middlemen taking back the money, middle people taking back the money from them, so that the law itself has to change as well, and take account of what's going on. The rights must fit the people, not the people the rights. Good. All right. Okay, let's go back to number 3 then. So the third stage of your wonderful project plan is to present your work on the specific problems that villagers face and your findings at an international conference. So what's wrong with that? That's a great way to end the project, isn't it? What do you think? Pranab.
Yeah, I would look at the health facets of the problem first, because there are multiple, and they certainly lead to other. They certainly get connected in different lines to the other problems as well, like wages and all.
Good.
However, the health being more important, we can. I mean, thinking like a lawyer, I feel that it can give us an edge to give it more light, get it more into the light, and use health to be the optical thing, so that we can channelize the health problem that is being faced by the workers over there, and then draw attention by to other problems as well.
Okay, so I'm afraid lawyers are taking over this group. So and that's no criticism of you, Pranab. It's showing how we do that. So the right to health, obviously, and I mean, it's not just that. A lawyer, an advocate, is only as good as the story they tell. And so Pranab's instinct, you share my instinct absolutely, which is the right to health is the most fundamental right of all. You think about workers who suffer from silicosis in Rajasthan. The men die from silicosis. You get huge widow villages around Budpura. The women then work for 100 rupees a day. Because it's so low, their children start to work again. So you see that actually these are not little watertight categories of rights on paper. They're people's whole lives. So that's okay. And then, as you said before, Pranab, you reach out to the partners. Who else can you get? Doctors to give reports? Can you get partners? Who are the people who are the stakeholders, to use that more common phrase in these rights? But now I want to move on to the third stage of the project, which is the sort of concluding bit in this person's project plan, which is you've done all the right to health. You think, and I understand you present the right to health as the main problem, but what I'm more interested in is that as a planned step. So your planned step is you've thought about the problems, you've investigated them, and now you present your work at an international conference and you say what your findings are. You may, if you're actually, okay, let me shut up and hear what you've got to say. Is that a good final way to conclude the project or not? Ariane, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a good way to end it.
Okay, anyone disagree?
Yeah, I surely do. I believe it's a national matter. We might use it at the international conference for as a case study, or as a study, or as a project. Paper presentation kind of a scenario or conference. Yes, I would not disagree with that. But so to say that we want a solution from an international conference out of for this particular problem, that is not the right approach for me. So I would
Why not? Why not?
probably I would reach out to the local authorities, see what they have in the infrastructure, then on to the state level and then at the union level. Also, we have various rights. I mean, it is right to life is a fundamental right in India. We can move directly writ petition, in the High Court and then in the Supreme Court if needed. So
Yeah.
in that scenario, I certainly believe, I mean, there's much more that we can do locally than nationally than directly, driving onto an international arena.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So you're quite right, Pranav, and you this time have picked up me, which is stay local, or like Ariane did in Tripura, reach out to the state or even the union. Think about approaching the Supreme Court in its original jurisdiction. Diva, you've got something to say.
Yes, I believe that presenting the findings of the project at an directly at an international conference shows disconnect. I don't think presenting it at an international conference is going to help the people. Like first approach should be going to the local authorities, then as Pranav mentioned, the state and then the union, and then the international conference perhaps, because it just I don't know much about like legality around all of this, so I'm just saying this from an outsider kind of view.
You're not an outsider, you're an
It just
insider.
does it
Yeah, go
just
on.
like does not kind of sit right with me that uh like I'm conducting a project on such a like niche topic and then presenting it at an international conference, which people at that conference might not be able to relate to or might not be able to help.
I mean, I think that's excellent. I think, the word you use, Diva, was disconnect. And I think, if we're thinking about empowerment, how disempowering is that? In fact, it's worse than disempowering. It's extractive, isn't it? You've extracted this information from the villagers and then you go off to the conference. And this is not actually a very theoretical, hypothetical scenario. The global north is full of conferences about the global south, which take place in the global north. I mean, it happens the whole time, and people for all sorts of reasons. People want to migrate, people want to live in different places. But if you're looking at a concrete project in a village, surely you have to take the voice of those villagers with you. And I first really learned this at the Centre for Legal Empowerment at Jindo, and I would encourage you to, reach out and Professor Ajay Pandey, I'm sure Prachi will help you. Actually, it's a great centre to be involved with. And he said, we were talking about our project, and he said, but of course we will discuss our findings with the local communities that we interview. Of course we will do that. And I thought, oh, right, okay. And I learned something. Of course you go back. You don't just extract the data and take it away. And this is why Diva's conclusion is so absolutely spot on, that if you're really interested and serious about empowering, that you don't just take the information away and use it to advance your career and go on. And I think the other point about this is long term, isn't it? And I think I mentioned earlier the risk of retaliation. If you're doing this work, you have to be prepared to stick around. You don't just float in and float out. You stick around, you see what's going on, you keep a long-term contact, whether you or the organization. So yeah, excellent contribution. And I think, I don't think it is about insiders and outsiders. I think this is genuinely something that has to be cross-disciplinary with mutual respect between the disciplines at stake, that are involved. So yeah, I would any other thoughts on that final point? I think Diva's probably said it, but there may be. Sanika, do you have anything you want to add?
I didn't remember the throat was not fine, so I'd written it in the chat box.
Oh, I see. Okay, right. Okay, well, we'll look at the chat box when I can. So I mean, I think I'll stop sharing now if I'm able to stop sharing. Oh, yes, okay, your chat, let's look. Firstly, trying to understand their problems will be better, and then some higher authority person in the village. Okay, so the higher authority person, I think Diva raised this earlier, didn't it? You've got to be very sensitive and aware. And I mean, there might be a panchayat, there might be, but you're going into the field, and your first issue is to be aware of the territory you're entering. All the things that Diva said about thinking about language, thinking about are there power imbalances within this community. Okay, and then the other thing you said, firstly trying to understand. Yes, okay, so it's this. Okay, right. Let me stop sharing. So, I mean, hopefully, and I mean, you've already between you got experience. You've already between you got excellent ideas. But I hope I've convinced you that really law can contribute. But I think law has to. You always, and when I practiced as a barrister for 20 years, and probably the single thing I've taken away, as well as that the best advocates tell their client's story, that all you are really is a conduit for your client, is to understand that your clients are the ones driving the development of the law. I had a case which went to the House of Lords, now the Supreme Court in the UK, and it was a teacher who was a lesbian and who was harassed by her students. And we tried to argue that sexual orientation discrimination was unlawful, and we lost. We won slightly at first instance, and then we lost at every stage, all the way up. We lost and lost. And I began to get very, very depressed, because obviously as a lawyer, you want to win. But the client became stronger. She became stronger because she was highlighting the injustice. Now, it's really difficult. It was a culture change for me as a lawyer to understand that for me, I wanted to win. For the client, it was highlighting her. She was visible, and her case brought about a change in the law. That said, the people that we're interested in want food, they want shelter, they don't want violence, they don't want to be subjected to violence. Safety first in terms of projects. I'm sure Ariane can sort of talk about that, but you have to be safe. You have to be safe. You have to make sure the people you're interviewing are safe. And it's probably, I think, one of the most difficult things to doing a development project. Any other thoughts? Do you want to each give a thought from around the room? Diva.
I think we could not hear you for the past few seconds because of some internet issue. Could you please repeat what you last said?
What did I say? Where did I? So I was just saying that I learned something from my client, so that lawyers perhaps have to be a bit more humble and realize. I think telling your client's story, voice, is probably the single most important thing for me, and that applies for development workers as well as for lawyers. But really, I just wanted your final thoughts. What do you think you might do going forward? Has it encouraged you to think about project work? Or not, or any other thoughts, final thoughts really from the session? And I'm not saying, I don't want you to say, oh, this is a great session, but what do you think you will take forward?
There's a lesson of for humility. Certainly, would go the long way, and I certainly believe that it is not only for lawyers, but in general for everyone. I mean, because any field is an evolutionary. There's this evolving process attached to it, and development practice in itself is such like that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Pranab. Diva.
I think since it was a completely new area for me, I'm excited to go deeper and explore this field more, and the specific case study which we did, and it's the similar cases in India. So yeah, that's
good. Okay, good. Well, thank you for your contributions today. Ariane.
I think, Sandhya, what you said is very important when you come especially to the point of view of India, because in our country there are problems arising every day, and then you have people adding up to the problems instead of solving them. So of course, we as citizens also should take up actively, and as me also as a trainee, because I am into my 5 years LLB course. So
Yeah.
yeah, someday when I aim to become a lawyer, and I think it's not just the responsibility of lawyers also to solve out problems, but then everybody should actively participate in to make this entire system better. Because as I said, throughout my journey, my field works, I've seen people and authorities are too reluctant to work. So that something that has to go away, else things won't change. Because it's like, until something happens to me, I don't work for someone else. So that mentality also has to go, because I've seen many people being reluctant because it's not up to me, so I won't go and I won't fight for someone else. But then the day it comes to you, you realize that no, I should have fought then and there. So yeah, that is it, Sandhya. Thank you.
That's a very powerful point. Very powerful. Sanika, you've got a sore throat. Have you got anything you want to share in the chat? Okay, I think, have I missed anyone? So Diva, Pranab, Ariane, I think that's it. Prachi, did you want to say anything or?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, the way you and also the students tied it all together in the end by really bringing home the point that research or, development interventions must never really be extractive. I think that's a big takeaway, especially for our development practice students, the way you
Yes, well,
practice development. Yeah.
yes. No, well, I hope that you all, I mean, it sounds Ariane's already done projects and you all three of you sound really great. You'd be great going out there, but it's probably one of the hardest things to do, I think. But ultimately, yeah, it's bringing about change in a world where, yeah, as Pranab powerfully said, most people think, well, it's not my problem. Good. Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much, Plachi, for the invitation. I'll send you the reading list for the books I mentioned and the links in case they're not familiar. I imagine they are familiar, but thank you so much. And
Thank you
yes,
so
stay in
much for
touch.
this wonderful session, and also to the students for making it so
For making
interactive.
it wonderful. Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
share my
It was a
email details.
wonderful start to the new year, to our masterclass seminar series for this year. So thank you. Thank you, Sandhya, for doing
Thank
this.
you,
And also
everyone.
to the
Happy to.
students, Sandhya will be sharing the reading list with me. If you want to access it, please write me an email and I'll forward it to you all. And thank you for joining us.